Welcome to Peace, Perspective, and Poetry with our hostess, Shanique Adele.
Welcome. Hi, I am your hostess. My name is Shanique Adele, and I will be hosting our second annual Peace Perspective all today. How's everyone today?
All right. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So we have Miss Dada Ra. She is our founder and creator.
Hi, greetings everyone. This is, again, as Shanique said, our second show. Marlon is our featured guest poet this evening. And in case you're not aware, the purpose of this show or presentation or whatever you would like to call it is to have the conversation. It's to have that conversation in the atmosphere, that peace is something that can be an everyday conversation, something that we talk about all the time. And what better way to do it than to demonstrate it? And so Shanique is, hey Julie, Shanique is going to be talking to our fabulous poet who has an incredible background and has some wonderful things happening in his life. And we're gonna have a great time, everyone. And thank you for being here. Shanique, take it away, it's all on you.
Yes, thank you, Miss Dada Ra. Welcome, everyone. So happy you all can join us again for our second annual Poetry, Peace, and Perspective. So I want everyone to give a big shout out to our special guest. Thank you so much, Mr. Marlon Ferdinand.
Thank you.
Yes. So could you just tell us a brief, summary of who you are, or I'll start. Okay, so in case you guys don't know that's watching, he was in the military for 30 years, and he's also a big, well-known open word poet. Isn't that right?
Yeah, spoken
Right.
word. But I like that open word. That's a new one, but I like open word poet.
Open word, spoken word. But you are a well-known poet, and you've had a very interesting life as well, right? So do you want to share with everyone a little bit about yourself?
My name is Marlon Ferdinand. I'm also known on the spoken word circuit as P.O.W, the power of words, which is also a flip on the fact that I am a 30-year veteran. I retired in 2019 with 30 years of military, 14 years Army enlisted, and 16 years Air Force officer. I retired as a major. Had a couple tours. My last one was in Afghanistan in 2008, 2009. I am a registered nurse, graduate University of Miami, and I'm also a firefighter with Miami-Dade Fire Rescue. But poetry is one of my favorite things to do.
Wow, woo! What a resume, right? What a resume. Yes, talk about living. All right, so how would you like to be addressed, Mr. Marlon, Mr. Ferdinand? How would you prefer? Or do you have a name, as a poet that you prefer?
We'll roll with P.O.W today.
P.O.W.
Marlon or P.O.W is fine. So
okay, Marlon P.O.W.
Marlon or P.O.W, Marlon P.O.W, which is my website, but Marlon P.O.W.
Okay. All right, P.O.W. I like that. P.O.W. Okay, so Ms. Dada Ra, as everyone can pretty much see, or they heard you earlier, those just joining in, this is a nice, safe area to talk about peace, talk about poetry and everything. So could you just give just a brief summary on what made you think of this open space for us to join in as far as talking about poetry? Just a little brief summary in case people are still kind of not really sure about what to expect here.
So the beauty of poetry is, so think about if you have a conversation with someone and you don't agree with what they're saying, or you might not even want to hear everything that they're saying. You'll cut them off. But a poem, you're going to listen to a poem, whether you agree or disagree. You're going to listen to it from beginning to end. You're going to respect the poet, unless it's really bad poetry, which there really isn't a lot of that. So my intention is to have a platform where peace can be spoken about, and it's done in such a way that people are going to respect the speaker. And that's really what this is all about. And I want poetry to be the vehicle for peace. And that's why we're really particular about who we invite. And after speaking with Marlon for quite some time, he not only is he a peace poet and who's been on the front line and out there where it was real, where some us as civilians we could never expect, we can't really understand some of the areas that he's been in and some of the things that he's experienced, and for him to have all of those experiences and to also go through some of the things that people of color go through, and to still come from all of that and to still be in a profession that exposes him to lots of people and to still stand for peace is, to me, it's amazing and it's commendable. And so Marlon is an example, a prime example of the type of person that is walking the planet that we don't get to recognize sometimes unless we have platforms like this. So it's for us to create the atmosphere and to display the atmosphere to others so that they recognize, and so that maybe this will become the common expectation, and there'll be more of these types of conversations as opposed to where we tend to go with our thoughts and with our our group talk when we don't realize that there are other options available.
All right, well said. And that
Well
is what
said.
you are, Queen Miss Donna Ra. Yes. Awesome. So back to Mr. P.O.W. Okay, so I hear that you grew up in New York, correct?
Yes, my family's from Trinidad, but I grew up in New York, and then I spent high school and some time here in Miami. So Miami has been home since then.
Okay, okay. And then I know that you said that you started writing poetry when you were around 14.
Yeah, I started writing at the age of 14. I started off as a beatboxer. Then I started, rapping and getting my opportunities. Um, and then you realize that writing, when I wrote, even then, it wasn't with a beat in mind. We didn't have, you had a tape deck, but you was writing with your own rhythmic beat. So by default, it had to hold its weight without a beat and it was poetry. So it was with or without music. Are these lyrics going to be able to stand and keep our attention span um, for past 3 minutes?
That is awesome. So around age 14, like when you started writing, like where would you say you got some of your inspiration from? Would it be like other MCs or, from school or from personal life? Like, could you tell us more?
I had Big Daddy Kane and Rakim were big influences of mine. Even back then, I was told I looked like Big Daddy Kane if I had my flat top. But it was one of the reasons that I picked up the pen, and then uh, just the lyrical responsibility or the awesomeness of being able to have an impact one way or the other. It was, once you were able to enjoy it and it not be confused. I mean, if you made money, nice, but sometimes the business end robbed you of the fun of just being able to create, entertain, and touch folks. So I was able to keep most of that. I enjoyed when um, you do gigs that were respected enough to pay, but it was something about being able to speak, address issues, lift up vibrations, You can't put a price on that.
No, you cannot. That sounds awesome. So, do you think you can bless us with one of your poems?
Sure. Let's start with one that addressed all the branches of the military, because while we sometimes don't recognize we're actually brothers and sisters, even in the rank instruction system, they're all like cousins. They're one family. So I have a poem that I was able to do for the general when I was in Afghanistan. So it was an opportunity. Even then, there was a Captain Ferdinand's Corner on the radio station to uplift during the encouragement hours. So I was able, by poetry, to really do a lot of things. So this one is called "This Is for My Soldiers," or also "Keep on Living." Take a little sip. This is for my soldiers, to all my fly girls and boys. This is for the Semper Fi and you sailors, Coast Guard, keep on giving. This is for the camouflage and the boots, the ribbon and metal dub suits, missing mom's chicken soup. And since freedom isn't free, all true troops keep on living. By the time that I was 18, I was wearing a camouflage suit. I traded my suede Adidas for a pair of combat boots. I gave him my pen and my paper to use my index finger to shoot. And my aim was nothing cute. But the truth, I know what it feels like to have bullets ringing by your ear. And I know what it feels like to smell victory in out the air, though you're living out a foxhole. This war, we got it on lock though, but really it's not so, because hey, who's gonna fix my daughter's tacos? I mean, who's gonna squeeze me and think that I'm macho, encourage me, so that I got your flow. Power of words, the softer page like Sacho. And at first, it was all about the GI Bill. And I thought about the price of college and the fees I'd kill. And after 5 years, I lived it. And another 5, I loved it. 5 more, I'm praying about the enemies I'd kill. And I will, cause I wanna go home to my family. I have to do this for my country. Understand me? The Army. This is for my soldiers, the Air Force, to all my fly girls and boys, Marines. This is for the Semper Fi and your sailors, Coast Guard, keep on giving. This is for the camouflage and the boots, the ribbon and metal dub suits, missing mom chicken soup. And since freedom isn't free, all you troops keep on living. Dear Father, protect my family when I'm gone. I mean, forgive me, I never thought I'd have to leave them alone. I'm still the man of the house, no doubt, but I'm gone. But without such luxuries as a TV and a phone. And at first you try to paint like this different picture in your mind, right? Like it's some overseas vacation for unspecified time, right? But the first time you hear a grown man scream, you question whether to pull out your Bible or to pull out your weapon. And now I don't know this cat, but I trust him like my mama. Because with our teamwork, you can end it like a period, or you can continue with a comma. But Major Marlon Ferdinand, known as P.O.W., I'm there with my rifle and my Bible and the whole enchilada. This is more than a saga with Osama. The best widescreen playwright could not encapsulate all the drama. Like that unexpected letter to your mama, signed, sealed, delivered with integrity, courage, valor, and honor. Got a letter in the mail, gonna won't go to. Hold up, wait a minute. Check that foxhole, make sure no grenades in it. See, this is for the red, white, blue, and the green too. Black, white, yellow camouflage has a team too. But only God and a few really seen you and can believe what you've been through. The Army. This is for my soldiers, the Air Force, to all my fly girls and boys, Marines. This is for the Semper Fi and your sailors, Coast Guard, keep on giving. This is for the camouflage and the boots, the ribbon and metal dub suits, missing mom's chicken soup. And since freedom isn't free, all you troops keep on living. Freedom isn't free, y'all. So just keep on living. Thank you.
Woo! That was amazing. That was so freaking fabulous and awesome. You see why we have him as a guest, y'all? You see, that was
Thank you.
awesome.
That was great.
So awesome. Yes.
That was real.
I'm glad you enjoyed that.
That was awesome. And I think, from everybody and everything like that, like that was you feel it. You definitely feel it and everything. So thank you so much for that. Okay, so could you tell us a little bit more? I mean, we heard enough from your poem and everything. Um, so what was it like being in the military, and as a Black man, and seeing violence, and then you had to take certain orders, and pretty much had to be precise about certain things, whereas when you write, you're kind of free. So did anything kind of like set you back in a way, or did you find a way to express yourself during the military, or was it harder, or was it not?
Well, it was certainly it was a deviation from what was the norm. I mean, my family was from the islands, so more and more I got to recognize that these experiences of polarity were the very things that made me be able to find the fuel to write, or the fuel to be tested in certain ways, to know, um, to dig deeper. Most of these, the harshest, most ego bruising moments are the ones that have you dig the deepest, and probably being the most spiritually provoking moments that would really wake you up and get you in alignment with where you need to be. So more and more, you didn't always see it as a youth, still learning the ropes. Yeah, I'm still learning myself, um, deciding who I am. So it was boot camp did sort of strip you of some of the things that you thought were important. They didn't know if you had a nice car. They didn't know you had a nice haircut. You didn't have no tape, so there was nothing to separate you. There was no fade, So you really same suit. You couldn't employ no swag. There was no ice. There was nothing. Those things. Whoever you are, and they say you are in these moments, and you weren't able to trick them otherwise. This is you. So you got to face it now. You can't. There's nothing to hide. So there were some things about it that did force you to wake up to, or grow, or sort of let go of that extended boyhood that we often have as young males. You know, um, during the generation. So it snapped you out of mediocrity or stagnancy. It shook things up. I had some moments like, is this for me? Like, is this just something really in my face? Like, do I want to do it? And then you realize, wait a minute. So many have done it before you. Then you recognize the balance between what could be recognized the game, or the digging deeper. This ain't about don't take things personal. But is it the four agreements? Always do your best, be impeccable with your word. Don't take things personal, and don't make assumptions. So those things would help you sometimes have to dig deeper. It wasn't always available, but I made it was a good ride in the end. I know some tough seasons. I know war. I know tears. I know losing your friends. I know getting passed up, or maybe a little delay when you thought you should have got the promotion. But in the end, most of these things I can say contributed to a better version of myself. And I'm able to tell a story. Um, so many different ranges of issues that I've been able to embrace, or um, it just, I've never had to go outside of my experiences almost to write. There's so much fuel right there. Just um, on my book, there's a book called The Power of Words. It's now on Amazon. How do you write a poem? And I found a way. It was called Indigo Skies, a letter to your daughters while you're on orders on your way to war. These are the words. Um, there's a poem that I promised Dada that I would do. And it was called Like Me. It was expressing what it was like to meet your son for the first time at age 17. I have four daughters. I learned that I have a 17-year-old son, which was amazing. He's now 27, a young version of me. So that was an awesome experience. So I have one called Like Me. I get to write it. So you get to share your experiences on paper, and you never know who can spiritually connect, or get healed from something they weren't able to um, clothes, or, you know, there's so much unhealing out there. Even as a firefighter, that's really perhaps the underlying of at least 50% of all our calls is some kind of non-healing, some kind of anxiety that still just peel the surface. So we have to learn how to heal. We have to learn to breathe, stay away from TV. That's
Right.
pretty much how I'm
Thank
able to
you.
balance those experiences and still sort of have enough hard drive space to smile, create, laugh, and not be drained, you know? So
Yeah, that goes back to my next question, because you're in the military, which is, can be a very violent combat area. You were a paramedic, you were also an RN. So at times you were faced with a lot of reality. So how do you still, find peace? Like peace within your soul, peace within your heart, peace within like your surroundings, like, and there's violence and sorrow and death, around you. So
well, I think I've read it somewhere. It said you have the power to control your perception, and therein lies your freedom. And when you go to war or you have any of those experiences, who you are, the kind of work you put into your personality does make an impact. It does. So everyone doesn't come there at the same place or the same place of peace or any of the fruit of the spirit, even, but the love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, or any of these things. So you got the hope. I do know when you're younger, your allegiance could sort of be blind. You don't have that many tools yet. You're developing into a young man. I played video games, but it didn't have as much control perhaps as this generation may, with this kind of blind, blah, 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 and almost numb to this. No, this is the real thing. This is real lives and people. Um, but there were so many different influences even then. So you gathering the tools, it's OJT as a 22, 23-year-old, and I'm going to war. I started college. Then I was called out of college, getting deployed. There's really no rules to, now, yes, everyone has to learn how to use a weapon, but that's not everybody's primary job. So mine was to save lives. As a medic, I was a combat medic. Then I went to nursing school. Then I was a flight nurse. Yes, we were strapped. Yes, we had weapons to defend ourselves. But it was like I had a weapon in one hand, but I had a band-aid, a tourniquet, and some medicine in the other. And that's my primary job, to conserve fighting strength and to save lives. So that also allowed me to have a purpose other than this. I think everybody think it's robotic and everyone just got a musket, a gun. Yeah. No, we have to have medical component. We have our cooks. We have our finance, we have our engineers, we have the logistics. So it's a city, that becomes a smooth running wheel. So everyone is trained to be able to use one, but we have a couple of jobs. And depending on where you set your post and deciding what you are here for, you can look yourself in the face and you can find a purpose. So it's not always just one way. I understand why we say it's not often a place for a young black male. But then think about it. Where you tell me one place that exactly is or is even available to us. It's not always available. Some of my confidence wasn't even there until I went in the military to actually go to college. To be honest with you, I was like, I can do this, and then I ended up going to University of Miami Nursing School. But I went in the military first. I actually wanted to get out of class. I did go to the ASVAB, kind of by accident, but I kind of by faith and not by sight most of my ride. Yes, I do have quite a resume. Um, it is probably enough to pop a collar, but I know better that there was too much in there that I know I couldn't have done by myself. There was the Heavenly Father and divine guidance, and a lot of things worked out. Usually, because I didn't probably have as many of the egoic things in place. Because I didn't feel particularly bright, be honest with you. So I really had to study till 3 a.m. to get my 84 sometimes, and I felt like something's wrong with me. So it made me have to try everything. I'm going to try my talent. I'm going to sing, I'm going to rap. Something's going to land. All right, let's see what happens, and something did happen. And a few things at the same time, some of them beyond my calculations. So divine guidance, I would say, was a lot of my resume. But I've saved lives, and I've touched lives through my poetry. I was I mean, I had all kinds of patients. I had Taliban patients. I had Afghanistan police, Afghanistan army. I had kids, cliff pilot babies. So my patient load was anybody. So I had to have a compassionate. I mean, but I remember what we had. I had one patient. I had him for months. An explosion. You know, he had a prosthetic eye, and so I was the one that took care of him, and peeled off the scabs. Then I remember I took the surgery clippers and I gave him his first fade when he had like a surgery. So he was looking strange. I remember when I first gave him a fade and let him look at and see a smile in his face that not even speaking the same language, we spoke the same language. So everybody ultimately wants peace. I think this last tour with Afghanistan, if it's something that I learned, we're so much more the same than we are anything else. You know, it did feel a little strange to go over to somewhere where at some point we were told that this is our enemy and we are the nice guys and they didn't really treat it necessarily all that well, even in your own camouflage. So I've seen it all. And so love and compassion usually would guide you where you have to have the least amount of judgment, and then you can really do your job. I came here to conserve strength and have somebody, I didn't create it, but I'm here to make it better. Somebody with my presence, I hope to keep somebody alive or a couple of you know? So that's my job.
Ah, thank you. What do you hope to accomplish with your poetry or your piece of poetry?
I think poetry gives me an opportunity to really touch and avenues beyond. You know, I get to talk about what it's like to come home from war and try to fit back in. I get to talk about love. I get to talk about fatherhood. I get to talk about spiritually provoking pieces that may wake somebody up and get them a little closer to God. And when you've had people tell you, thank you for that, that changed my wife and I life, and I've had all that, that's like, wow, that felt good. That's why I do it. When you get to speak at a wedding or even a funeral, and you can see that I was able to bring healing. Um, this year, I got to shoot my a video called "From the Front Line," so I was able to represent for all frontliners and really have something proud to deposit on the universe as far as doing this COVID and that nobody's really the unsung heroes are those frontliners really even the moms and the parents who now have to be teachers at home. There's so many who make this formula, this network come together, but nobody's talking about it. So we can't let TV dictate who we need to tap on the shoulder and show love to. And TV to have you heavy, depressed, anxious. So
No, well said. Before we continue, is there anyone in the audience that has any questions or want to have their input on peace or so far, any questions him being in the military or his poetry so far? Questions about him being a firefighter? Don't be shy.
Raise your hand if you have a question. And there's in the reaction section, folks, there's an option to raise your hand if you have a question.
okay, I think I missed. I want to make sure I hear it. So repeat the question. That was a question, right? I didn't
Well,
hear it
not
so
so much.
clear. I'm so sorry.
Well, not towards you. It was more towards the audience. If
Oh,
anybody
okay.
else wants to put their input on anything that you have said so far, or anything about poetry or peace, what it means to them. But I think we have some shy people out there, so maybe later on, further along, they might want to, raise their hand or something. So,
Perfect.
okay. So, when did you decide you want to become a firefighter? Was that after the military, or tell
It
us
was
more
after the
about?
military. I had already been in the military. By the time I became a firefighter, I had already been in the military about 14 years. And I was working as an emergency room nurse. And in the emergency room, a lot of our technicians were paramedics. That was often their side job from a fire rescue. And we had a young lady who was a firefighter for, I think it was Pembroke Pines, and didn't know she affected my life in that way. Interestingly enough, she was a firefighter and had become a nurse. later on. So I did it backward. A lot of people become fire rescue paramedics and then veer over to nursing, but I was a nurse first. So some people think you left nursing for fire rescue. It was certainly one of the better decisions I made. It was fire rescue was an awesome job. You have some heavy days, but you have some days where you make an impact. Um, so for fire rescue, I was working in the emergency room. She said, maybe you'd like this. You should consider it. So I decided, I'd apply. At the time, my first spoken word album had just come out. So I was, I didn't see all the way in the distance, but I say, why not? Um, Interestingly enough, though, as the years went by, about a year and a half, I started hearing more and we're like, wow, maybe I did something. It sounds like everybody's talking about this job. So I learned retroactively of how awesome it could be. And it did work for me very well.
Oh, that's awesome. Yay.
Yes.
Okay, so around what age or how old were you when you first entered your first spoken word competition and won?
Well, I used to rap in high school. And I'd win talent shows and different things. I started off with a beatbox as started off there, and then but I tried to separate myself from it and see it as something that I did, not something that I was doing. And so often I would go away with the military, and there'd be the NCO club. They'd have some kind of talent show. They said, "Birthday, get up there," and I go there and I win something. So it was sort of like I tried to leave it alone, and it was sort of like God was like, "Well, you thought I gave this to you for you. There's people I need you to touch and reach now. So work it out, do what you got to do, but I need you to write and uplift." So I kept, yeah, I've tried to back from it sometimes, and it was right there. I've been if it was asked to do a wedding or it just was always somewhere I was able to lift some, create some smiles, you know.
Oh, that's awesome. So, has the military affected any of your decision making in your current profession now?
Well, certainly, you get your mind gets stretched as to your range of critical thinking, situational awareness, um, my confidence in my medical, even though you have to sort of unnurse to become an effective firefighter paramedic, it's a different way of thinking. I
Right.
remember going on trauma calls, accident scenes and bodies, different places, and I'm looking at the patient, and he's like, Ferdinand, we're not diagnosing anything here. We're just trying to keep them alive and get them to the hospital. So I had to change my long term and make it focused on the now. And so it come in handy, then, but really you have to redesign your focus to keep these people in this, alive. Sometimes
Right, right.
they call it circling, sometimes like, wow, we made it to the hospital. We're so happy. It was like, wow, she was circling the drain. We're so glad she made it, like, wow, we kept her alive. And it's like, and then you only think about it after you take them to the emergency room. They're still alive. You watching like, yes. And you sit down like, and then you think of all the things that could have gone wrong or all the things that went right or what you could have done better. So sometimes you have to, you're your biggest critical, you're your biggest critic, but sometimes you got to learn not to take yourself so serious and learn how to enjoy. Hey, I did not create the issue. I am just here to make it better. So
So, would you say that your experience made you more appreciate humanity more or see it from a different perspective, maybe?
oh, absolutely. Because you know, nursing, fire rescue, it's different from like the police. The police got to find their game face. We have to find our compassion face, and sometimes it's not always there. Some people are like, good morning. What's the problem? You do have those that aren't genuine, but for the most part, if you don't have it in you, you would learn to be, even though you 70% of the calls I probably wouldn't call fire rescue for. 30% of those calls, I can see why they thought it was an emergency, especially when it comes to kids. We come
Right.
there bells and whistles. Everything's gonna be, the younger they are, the more we're gonna sweat. That should have kind of came out wrong, but it's like we're gonna give it the best for any adult. but
Right,
we're
right.
everybody's drenched on a cardiac arrest on a child. Everybody, we thinking quick, like boom gun. You got the CPR. We do that for everybody, but there's something about digging deep and want that machine to flow even smoother. Um, and they said smooth, slow, smooth. That's the beauty of at a fire station. You become a family. You eat dinner together, and then when a cardiac arrest or a car fire, you sort of create this football team kind of synergy, and you already know who's going to do what. You don't even have to really talk. The more you work, the more I jump in. I'm going to block traffic. I'm going to look for wounds. I'm going to start this tourniquet. I'm going to get the airway ready to intubate. I'm going to handle the EKG. And, so I guess I could talk about with some excitement, but I tell you, I know some days that you left heavy, but it's a good job when you're trying to make it better. I hope I answered the question if I
Okay,
didn't deviate too
okay.
much.
No, no, you did. You
Okay.
did. Well, you're doing a great job. Thank you. So, do you think you could give us a little freestyle, maybe?
Okay. So freestyle could come in many flavors because you could talk about anything. So I know that I promised Ms. Dada, that you wanted one in particular, you wanted to hear sort of the story of my son and I meeting. That would be
Oh, that
considered
would be a
a
good
flip.
one.
So it lets you know the way that poetry can go in any direction. That's the beauty of it. There's no rules. Um, you can sing, you can put a comma, you can put exclamation, you can put an accent, you can get loud here, you can get soft here. And so a lot of my poetry I would consider a straight line, and then all of a sudden I get to have fun and 3D it, and then find out, oh, this goes to music. Oh, this goes to a track. Maybe I can rap this. Maybe I can flow this. So this poem is called Like Me, and in a version that is recorded, my son actually starts the poem and he ends the poem. So my son is now in the military.
Oh,
I'm a grandfather. He's 27 now, but I met him at 17 after him growing up thinking someone else is his dad, and I didn't know. The mother never told me. She went away with the military, and God gave me a gift and a son. So this is the poem about to my son meeting him. It's called Like Me. All right. It was surreal how he looked and how he talked like me. Same chiseled features, nervous sweats, and how he walked like me. His attitudes like, I'm down for whatever, but shoot for better. God, family, and cheddar. Thus he thought like me. Overlook the negative to find the good like me. Affectionate, compassionate with a twist of hood like me. But then he calls me on my celly the very second that I finish that line. Yeah, he'd be all up in my mind like me, but check this. I'm in the zone writing this poem, but then he calls me from his boy's phone because his phone hadn't been off for like weeks. So now he has me holding on this cellular phone without him knowing that he just showed up and he's all up in this poem like me. Our similar frequency, the nights we met recently, it's like, other than God, I don't know if one can know him like me. How to be a man, no one could ever show him like me. 17 years, no one could ever owe him like me. And these lyrics, well, no one could ever flow him like me. Because it's so natural, the nature of this nativity. A son is born, a mini me. I thank the creator for his creativity of joining Father, Son, and Spirit. It's a trinity. He says, Dad, I'm complete now. And I say, Son, that's it, oh, until infinity. I'm here to knock out some of your enemies and clear the path to that beautiful energy. When in doubt, son, love's the remedy. It clears the pathway to God's serenity. Plus, the love I have for you would break the family curse of Kennedys. I'm content that you conceded to claim your crown, King. Royal Marlon Ferdinand. Yeah, that's your rightful identity. Thereof entitled to all the amenities of being the child of a child of God, flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone. Oh, its own an impermeable entity. Man, I done cop the carbon copy of me with the possibility of being better than the P to the O to the W could ever be. Son, I may have missed your first steps, but I enjoyed watching these past ones. It gives me the hypotenuse plus the square root of the past ones. And since profits are better than wages, I'll invest in above. I'll let my love permeate these pages and let our blood permeate these stages of youth, manhood, and old age. However long God say is, and son, you know my way is. Walk by faith, not by sight, whatever the playbook, the good book say the play is. Because we both become something that we thought we never have. I never thought I'd have no son. You never thought you'd have a dad. And we can empathize and sympathize, but I'm glad. I'm glad that we decided what was a negative on yesterday, tomorrow we would add. The storm has now passed over. We've overlit the overcast. It's in the past. We've been there, done that. Wore the t-shirt. Here's the tag. You got my looks. You got my smile. It's in the bag. The DNA said 99%. Some say you're just more handsome. Just a tad, just a tad. But when I met you at the airport on September 26th, I was like, wow, how did God pull off something amazing like this? He made me promise not to tell anyone how I beat him in basketball. And in return, he promised not to say when he beats me in chess. And watching you chill out with your sisters, it's the best. And I even seen a couple of them fall asleep in your chest. A house full of princesses, we must protect the nest. There'll be no busters knocking on our door. We stopping all of that mess. Plus, when we got a side piece with an IP handling and all of that stress. Stay strapped, stay swole, we're protecting foe. Plus, you just in time to post up at the back door. You know exactly what I'm loading up this Mac for. And I pray to God that I remember how to act, yo. And I pray that I can lead by example and penetrate the mental state of you and your sisters with God's answers. To pray every day and have faith. The only way for your spiritual selves to swim in these seas of cancers. So God, thank you for finding my child. Always wanted a big brother for my daughters. Got it now. I know I missed a couple tears, but I'm now here. I vow from now your daddy would be around. Thank you for finding my son. For the moon and stars are now aligning as one. I know I missed a couple tears, but I'm now here. God won. This is how I'm gonna represent my son. It was surreal how we looked and how we talked like me. Same chiseled features, never sweating how he walked like me. His attitude's like, I'm down for whatever, but shoot for better. God, family, and their cheddar. Those who thought like me, overlit the negative to find the good like me. Affectionate and compassionate with a twist of hood like me. But then he calls me on my cellular every second that I finish that line. Yeah, he be all up in my mind like me. Lord, thank you for bringing my child to me. So that's that piece one.
Yes, that was awesome. Woo!
Thank you.
Chicken soup for the
Yeah.
soul. Yes, that was beautiful. Awesome, awesome. I saw earlier we had a raised hand. Is anyone in the audience want to put their input on something we addressed earlier, or the poem or the poetry? I saw a hand raised earlier.
I'm all ears.
It was a lady named Sharon. Sharon, are you
Is it
still
Sharon
there?
Manning?
I saw you raise your hand earlier. Don't be shy. Uh, no, check if your mute is if it's unmuted.
Is it Sharon Manning?
Corner. Yeah, Sharon Manning. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, I was. Can
Oh,
you
go
hear
ahead.
me?
Sorry. Yes, we can hear you. Put on your video.
Hello, Miss Manning. How are you, Miss
Hi, how are
Sharon?
you? I'm just figuring. I've been listening to you for the whole presentation. Really enjoying, what you've been sharing with us. But I've been challenged with this Zoom thing. Okay.
Okay.
With the video. What I was wondering, my question was, that the military is a very structured organization, and you're trained in such a way where there are barriers and everything is really structured in terms of what you need to do, how you think, you just react. How do you find the duality in terms of um, crossing over to be able to express yourself freely and openly and with so much passion and emotion that I hear in your voice in your poems? Do you find it hard to do?
Well, I do not find it hard because I think one of the ways we look at the military, yes, it is structured. Um, and the position is not always taking an order, but there's also the position of by balance giving orders. Now, I did come into the military slick sleeve, they call it, no rank. But 11 promotions later, I made it to the lieutenant colonel board.
Oh,
Um,
congrats.
so I got to see the transition of being, I had the drill sergeant in my face, and then I got to be the drill sergeant, but I'd also got to use my tools of being a compassionate officer, but yet showing the structure and a balance between the two. No,
Right.
you will have to, every now you may have to snap. You may have to say something to change the game or uplift or speak for the greater good, or so there's a balance of the two. So being even uh, even in the Air Force, it's culturally it's different from even in the Army. There's a lot of subcultures and paracultures, so there's a lot of lessons going on simultaneously, and sometimes it is racism, but that's not just the military. That's anywhere. So how are you going to handle it? What tool are you going to bring to the table that somebody's going to learn something like, man, maybe I should do that better. Maybe they understand somebody of their race or color better because I handled it in such a way. So these opportunities are always going to be there. So you always have a choice, and you have to decide who are you going to be, because you're going to get challenged. One way or the other, the true colors are going to come out. So you sometimes you got to take the time to be still and really put some time into what's your position. How are you going to feel like this? How are you going to not shoot off the hip and not give something the proper thought, and then next thing you know you end up putting somebody in a headlock and you're
Right,
not
right,
doing the right
right,
thing? Like, how do you have
right.
control at all the times? How do you have discernment? How do you allow yourself to be guided? God, order my steps, because if I take over, maybe this may not go so good. So there's all of that, and I've got to exercise that throughout on my career. And I tell you, I've tested God, and He showed up. He let me know He's in the building. And so that's an asset for me. Everyone may have a different choice or way but the universe is typically conspiring for your best version. And I had enough ups and downs to know in the end I can just pinpoint where um, this is something you could see how it almost needed to happen. Because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have done this, and I wouldn't have saw this, and I wouldn't have come to this understanding, and I might not have recognized this whole thing. So you have a choice to let that disruption and or that that moment, that haymaker that knock you off your swag or your balance. It behooves you to see the powerhouse in the big picture. Otherwise, it's just another thing that went wrong, another reason to be angry, another one reason to project it on somebody else and say, well, you should have said, another moment to not heal, not fix, blame it on somebody else, remove your power. I tried that. It don't always work. It uses a vital space. You're giving people your power. So you need to, I remember hearing it said that love means never having to say you're sorry. And I thought that didn't make sense. Like, why wouldn't you? But it registered something. It's because you gave so much forethought. You put the time to really think about this. You wanted to come in love, that when you lay down your words, you know that you came with the best intention. So usually, and here it is. This is my words. I hope you get the best part of this. I've come in love. Please get it. Because you
Right,
never want to
right.
be angry. But the more you put into peace, the less you have to deal with war. So I hope I answered the question.
Oh, you sure?
Okay.
Can you hear me? I'm
Yes,
not.
I can.
Okay. Can I ask another question?
Of course.
Sure.
No, the last point that you just shared with us, you're going a bit fast, and I was trying to listen to it, and the words, if I'm, tell me if I'm wrong, but it appears that you were away, I probably on one of your missions, and then your son or one of your children, you came home and you missed certain special um, milestones in their life. And so now you're trying to, through your poetry, you're trying to, from a very, very deep place, say, well, listen, I might not have been there for you, but hey, listen, I'm here now and you are mine. What was that poem all about? The one that you selected to share with us?
That poem was about it would almost seem like a fairy tale story. So there was a young lady that I had a crush on from middle school, and
Okay.
but you know, she was a little older than me, so that time you're still learning yourself. Anyway, I went away with the military, came back, and we met again. We became good friends. But I also started going to University of Miami, and we became more estranged. But we were still keeping in contact. And she told me she met this guy, and then they're thinking about getting married. They're going to have a child, and so she told me all these things, and I wished her congratulations. So then she went away with the military, and I told her, um, when you get ready to go away with the military, come by. I'll break it on down with you. I know where you're going. So when she comes by, um, it's interesting. Before she leaves, I break it on down for her, and she has her 3-month-old son. To my understanding, it's the child of the person she's with now. Never told me anything, and I never knew. I remember saying, "Oh, you got the baby in the car," and I pulled the baby out. The baby was about 3 or 4 months, and I remember looking like, "Wow," I felt some kind of connect, but like, "Wow, congratulations." I never saw her again. She went in the military. I um, never saw her until 17 years later. That relationship never worked out, and the truth did come out. And I I sent him a ticket from Seattle, Washington to Miami, and we fell for each other. He went back. He was 17 at the time. He knew that I didn't know anything. He didn't hold me responsible. We just really merged well. He went back to got back his things from Seattle, Washington, moved in, finished high school, changed his name, and so I was able to be a father in his life and really
Oh,
be
awesome.
there from there on in. Um, so it's been an awesome experience. So that story was about sort of it wasn't even in just that now, it was that I had to wait retroactively to embrace what it was to be a new father to this young guy who's like, I remember him telling me, he said, "Wow, I went from no dad to you," because the other guy was not in his life anyway. He hadn't seen him since he was
Right.
3. So that space he had space for me. And he's never called me anything but dad from the very moment. So here's another thing that's you might find interesting. So I have 4 daughters before meeting my son, and all my daughters, they're from the same mother. All my daughters' names are shades of blue. I am now divorced after 22 years, but my daughters, Indigo is in grad school, Sky is at Clark Atlanta, Navy's in high school, and Cyan is now going to high school. And my son, his name is actually legally changed to Royal.
Oh,
Royal. So all my
okay.
kids' names are shades of blue. Ferdinand.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
awesome.
Yeah.
He wanted
That
in. So you see,
that
soon to be
is
Sergeant Royal Edward Marlon Ferdinand. Yeah.
I have a quick
that
question.
is awesome.
I have a quick question. Because we're coming to the end of the show,
Okay.
and because we're talking about peace, and a lot of times when we talk about different types of strife or conflict and the things that are going on in the world, we speak from a perspective of race. However, you are very well spoken and you've been around a lot of different people. Would you say that it's not always about race? And from a human perspective, recognizing that we are people on this planet, that sometimes it's a person and you can see that this person either is for you or against you or whatever, however they're coming, and that you have to see that person as a person and not look at what color they are. Have you get where I'm coming from?
Absolutely. I've traveled all over the world, and I think it took those traveling moments to really realize how much a whole nother culture you can identify. You can find a friend, a soulmate like energy anywhere with any race, with any creed. And I think um, those barriers of simply seeing only color, there's a lot of history of damage that has come out of identifying only with the color, and I get it. Um, but the bottom line, you realize before you treat anybody like yourself. That's why they say love is that greatest commandment. Love thy neighbor as thyself. So when you come with that, um, you leave yourself open for a whole nother world of relationship with kindred energy, Color, unfortunately, it created more barriers than it should have. We need to respect it, that we have so many different cultural diversity in a gumbo, and that we're still all unified by one, that we come from one perspective of one God, even as it is one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who's above all, through all, and in you all. So really, there's so many reasons why we need to recognize that we have more in common than not. Unfortunately, we found more reasons to find differences in religion. So we can see why religion has not always done us. I think it helped get us on our feet. But we were supposed to be Christ-like spiritual beings. We are. We just happen to be having the human experience, but we are. These are borrowed. We are more like we are one.
Thank you. That was very, very, very well said. Um, and the only thing I would add to that is one day we'll get to that point of recognizing, for me, this is personal, folks, and this is part of the reason that the organization, this is part of the foundation of the organization, is recognizing that we exist prior to the flesh. We exist prior to gender. And that when it comes to, when we speak of the powers that be, whether you say whatever title you want to give, that existence is prior to us. So there is no gender, there is no he, there's no she, there's no it. It's just where it's more than we can comprehend. And so there's an understanding that there's a limitation of terminology when it comes to expressing that that is more than us. And it's an opportunity. And I think that sometimes if we spent more time on the opportunity of growth that's there and always there, that some of this other stuff that gets us on these tangents that we get stuck on, that we create another pathway, and that stuff would start to fall by the wayside because it would be mute in regards to power. It would be powerless in a real sense.
Exactly. That's well said. If you can defer judgment, when you realize like he can hurt just like you can hurt, it doesn't always, the cynical, more the darker way of approach is not always that, so we almost blame people in advance, but there's so much, they say there's so much more going on in the world that's great, but only looking through the eyes of the television, we would never grasp it through there. The diversity, we're not going to always get along or see eye to eye, but when you can take a back, you can understand he had a whole yesterday before you try to judge him on today. If you can just take a step back, that act of compassion can have you see that he seems pretty woven or invested in this concept. Maybe I could take a step back and try to understand what he saw. It was service. I think thinking of one accord would really be overstated. The diversity is really how we get to stretch and understand what is love. If we didn't know a little bit about hate or what felt like the absence of love, how would we be able to appreciate what was love? And then who did God use that was perfect? I mean, stutterers, tax, evaders, and he was perfect. That he was used. Perfection is not what he asked of us. Love your neighbors as self. That's what he had. Now we judging like he don't do it. We expect so much out of others. Treat others like you have yourself. Really, the formula is kind of simple when you remove that. And it said that the bottom line is more people are on that now. We need to believe it and understand it as possible. It's hard to see it if we just, but when you speak to others, you realize, people are waking up to it. I like to believe that. And, I get to see a different panoramic view as a firefighter. I'm in the house before they can fix the furniture, before they can fix their story. I get to see it all. And it ain't, I get to, and then my in-tuneness or even my compassionate availability, it makes me see you guys just had an argument. You just got a panic attack. You're really the one that started the whole thing. But this is not my judging right now. Sometimes that word of compassion, that one little joke can change vital signs. I've seen it with my own eyes. So, the medicine you give them may be your words. And that's the truth.
Thank you.
Even in nursing.
Thank you so much. No, I definitely agree with that. I saw someone raise their hand. Julie Rainbow, did you want to put your input on what we've been talking about so far as peace? Julie Rainbow?
First of all, I want to say thank you to Marlon. I had a question, but I know it's 8:00.
It's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead, girl. We're all having fun. Go ahead.
So Marlon, I'm really taken with your poetry and what you're saying. So the question I have is, what would you say has contributed to your evolution and where you are spiritually? What has been that particular, and maybe it's not just one ingredient, but I really admire your approach to the world. And sometimes I get really frustrated with men, particularly African-American men, because of their lack of evolution. So I'm just curious. So, and you did a fantastic job. So thank you.
Thank you. I think it was one ingredient that I could say has come handy. You have to be okay with spending time by yourself. Stillness and meditation. So I would say a lot of my biggest epiphanies came in quiet without the noise of the world. I had plenty of times, opportunities to get it wrong too. So it was really deciding to take the time to pay attention to my equalizer. Maybe I need to put down a little treble here, a little bit more baritone. In this situation, maybe I could drop down on the bass. Maybe be a little bit more prolific here, maybe more clear and focused here, more confident here. Scale back. Maybe I was too angry here. So there's always work to do. And I think when you realize, when you're aware, you can see each action as it's happening. I think I've decided to be more in my now. They say somewhat more people are so disgruntled about yesterday, so anxious about tomorrow that we miss on our todays. And with my kids and having, young ladies and they go growing, and I've decided to sort of be present and be able to keep a better mental Rolodex of important moments, because, you're going away a war or you have this catastrophe like Surfside. Now you want to remember all the things that are good to keep you sustained. You don't want to have to dig deep. You forgot all about it. You want to keep positive moments handy. And I think I've done more of that. So I had to find peace. I know rough times. I know war. I know what seems like depression. I know what seems like anxiety. Make no mistake, I had to do some work and make sure that I did what's required of me to make sure I can deflect it, find a way out of it, or make sure that I don't stay there. I had to want to grow. And that would be the advice. Always be willing to grow. This is the time to have faith. This is the time to use all the tools that you had. This is the time to really don't let fear get a hold of you. That would change everything. This is the time to stay light, forgive, let go what isn't serving you. That one uncle that got on your nerves, that one cousin that pissed you off, let all that go. Travel light.
Amen.
Yes, definitely. Amen. So,
Amen.
does anyone in our audience want to put their perspective on what they feel peace means to them so far? I think I saw Sasha raise her hand. You could unmute.
I'm coming. Hi.
Hi, Sasha.
So peace means to me, guys, that my baby boy, as you see him, say hi. Say hi.
Hey.
Peace to me is when he's okay. If anybody is a mother, father, I know I heard a few people talking about being parents, especially when they're young, that you're constantly worried of like if they're okay, if they're gonna swallow something, if they're gonna jump off somewhere they're not supposed to. It's just constant like worry. So whenever he's okay, I take a deep breath. So that's my biggest piece. And then second or after that, there's like a long list of other things like having a good time with friends and family. Knowing that you have financial security brings peace. And being, I guess, yeah, I think those are the two things that bring me the most peace.
Well said. Well,
Thank you for having me on, guys.
thank you for joining us.
No problem.
I think my peaceful nuggets are pretty much the same. My children, it definitely gives even, it makes it so much more fun to even do my book or the video when I have my kids bobbing their head like, okay, Dad, I think you just snapped on that one. Like, yeah. So, and to see their phases, I remember when my children were that young, and now, they have their own opinions, and, and our job as parents are not to dictate the road they take. It's sort of to put out the cones and hopefully put ingredients and foster all the beauty that you already shared with them, and they, help them make the best decisions on their own. Because sometimes they're like, no, you do what I say. You're going to be an attorney. You're going to do, but we have to let them be, and it's such a beautiful thing to watch them. So those are the ages that they're not talking back yet. They're still hugging, and then they grow up. He's handsome. Good job. Wow, look at him.
So awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in and making this an amazing event. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Marlon P.O.W.
Yes.
And, so we talk about poetry, we talk about peace and everything. So we gotta wrap up, guys. So join us again. So everyone, it's been a pleasure. Miss Donna, thank you so much. Everybody.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone. My YouTube is Marlon P.O.W. My YouTube channel. So there's the videos there from the front line, P.O.W. My new book, Power of Words 7 on Amazon. So just share the love. And what I am about is what you're about. So I'm really glad to be able to share and find out all these other platforms that we have a similar synergy and mind state. And so I appreciate this platform. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much again. Remember, everyone, this has been Peace, Poetry, and Perspective. Until next time.